rightly said, this webinar is intended for small animal vets who may be faced with having to prescribe for farm animal pets. So I'll start off by apologising that if you're thinking that this is a webinar all about going to tell you how to treat farm animal pets, then I'm afraid that is not going to be that. I'm not a farm animal vet. I'm a small animal vet. I have done mixed practice in the past, but I'm a small animal vet now, and this is really about the things you may not think about as a small animal vet when you have to occasionally treat a farm pet. So if I can make my slides move. Lovely. So the pitfalls, mostly this is, I'm afraid, is going to be about problems rather than solutions, but it's important that you know what they are. So here we have Mary, who's a very well looked after sheep who lives in a Wendy house in the garden. Mary is very well loved, and the very last thing that Mary's owners would think of doing is eat her. But we have to remember that most farm animal pets are food-producing animals, and we have to treat them as food-producing animals legally when it comes to prescribing, even though most of their owners wouldn't dream of actually eating them. So that means we need to record batch numbers every time we use any medicines on each individual basis, not just recording the batch numbers when they come in and when they go out, as we can do in small animal practice, but actually recording the batch number every time we use a medicine. The owner has recording requirements, which they might not realise, which I'll explain to you. We have to think about withdrawal times. When we use a medicine, we always have to tell the owner what the withdrawal time is, in case the animal is slaughtered and eaten. And sometimes pets, owners may think that that's definitely not going to happen, and then things change. There's a lack of authorised products for some of these farm animal pets, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about using the cascade in food-producing animals, which is a little bit different than using the cascade in small animal companion animals. And also, when people only have 1 or 2 sheep, or the odd goat, or even a couple of chickens, then they need very small quantities of medicines, and that in itself can be a problem. So those are the sort of problems we're going to talk about and make you aware of. Start off with something this is called prescribing to farm animal pets. So we start off very basic. What is prescribing? Well, all POMVs and POMVPSs, so in other words, all POM, veterinary authorised medicines, must be prescribed. POMVs has to be a clinical assessment of the animal or group of animals in order for them to be prescribed a POMV, and they must be under the care of the vet. And prescribing is the action of deciding what medicine to use, of assessing the animals and the client's requirements and deciding on the most appropriate medicine to supply or administer. The reason I've put this in is because sometimes when we talk about prescribing, we get mixed up in our heads with written prescriptions. So prescribing is actually often administering the medicine at the same time as you prescribe it. So if you just administer the medicine at the same time as you prescribe it, you're actually making an oral prescription. And that's how you're relaying the action to the customer. You're saying, I'm just going to inject your sheep with this. If it's not supplied by the person who prescribed it, then the prescription must obviously be written. So, food-producing animals then. The EU, of course, has a definition for these things, as it has for most things. So any animal that is fed, bred, or kept for the production of food for human consumption, including animals that are not used for human consumption, but that belong to a species that is normally used for human consumption in the community. So this covers cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens, horses, unless they're signed out. We're not going to talk about horses, but horses, unless they are signed out of the food chain. All these animals are food-producing animals. So although the individual may not be used for human consumption, they have to be treated as a food-producing animal for the purpose of all the regulations pertaining to veterinary medicines. So this is EU Regulation 767 from 2009. So here we have a typical sort of scenario, a couple of quite handsome pet pigs and also a chicken. I'm sure that none of these are planned to be eaten, but we have to treat them as food-producing animals. So when we're prescribing for food-producing animals, for every supply or administration of a POMV or a POMVPS, so we're only talking about the POMs here, we're not talking about AVM GSLs or anything like that. But for every supply or administration, so even when you give it, you must record, so as the vet, you must record the date, the name and address of the owner, the name and quantity of the product, and the batch number of that product. And you must keep those records for 5 years. All medicine records need to be kept for 5 years anyway. So that's every time you use a POM in a food-producing animal. So that's different from small animal in that we don't have to make a record of the batch number every time. And the vet who administers that POMV or POMVPS to a food-producing animal has to either personally fill in the livestock keeper's record book, their medicines book, or provide the written information to the livestock keeper. So give them at the time a chit with the information on, or have them access the information so they can put it into their book. And that information is the name of the vet, the date of the administration, the name, amount and batch number of the product, so what it is, which animal you gave it to, and the withdrawal period. And we'll talk about withdrawal periods a little bit later. The owner has to keep an animal medicine record book. And if you've got owners who haven't got these, they can get them from NOAA, they can get them from ARDA, that's the Animal Health Distributors Association, and they can get them from some of the breed societies as well. So this medicine record book should be a record of all the medicines they purchase and where they get them from, every time they administer medicines or the vet does, batch numbers, and a record of the disposal of the medicines. So here at the bottom of the screen, hopefully you can see a shot of the top of a page of an animal medicines record book. And so you can see that they record the name of the medicine, the date, which animal or group of animals was treated, who administered the medicine, particularly after to be administered by a vet, when the treatment finished, the withdrawal period for meat, milk or anything else, how long the withdrawal period is, how much medicine was used, the batch number, and where the medicine came from. So this is a legal requirement on the owner to record these things. You don't have to fill it in as long as you give them the information, but you must make sure they have sufficient information to be able to fill in their record book. So we said one of the problems is that there's not so many medicines that are authorised for these species. So I'll just have a quick little recap of the cascade, which I'm sure everybody understands the cascade, but I just want to point out actually things that are slightly different in food-producing animals. So as you know, under the cascade, if there's no suitable veterinary medicine authorised in the UK available to treat a condition, then you can prescribe in the following order: a medicine which is authorised in the UK for that species for a different condition or for another animal species. So the same species for a different condition or another animal species. So if it's for a goat, then you might be able to use something that is authorised for a sheep or for a different condition in a goat. A medicine authorised for humans, a medicine authorised in another EU state for use in another species. But for a food-producing animal, then if it is authorised in another EU state, it must be authorised for food-producing species. And then you can import it with an SIC, a special import certificate. And if none of those things are available, then you can have a product imported under an STC, a special treatment certificate, or prepared specially. So that's the normal cascade, the only difference being that for a food-producing animal, then if it's authorised in a different species, it must be authorised in another food-producing species. The other thing about the cascade from food-producing animals is that animals may only be treated under the cascade with medicines that contain substances listed in the table of allowed substances, EU Regulation 37/2010. And this means they must have a minimum residue level. So if anybody is suffering from insomnia, then I would suggest you follow this link here and get to Table of Allowed Substances, EU Regulation 37/2010. So please don't fall asleep now, but this is